The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, a vast expanse of stars and planets shimmering like scattered diamonds against an infinite black canvas. From the observation deck of Ecliptica Corp's headquarters on Earth, Dr. Ilara Voss gazed out at the cosmos with a mix of awe and unease. Humanity had achieved what once seemed impossible, colonizing dozens of worlds across the stars, but progress came at a steep price. Beneath the glittering facade of interstellar prosperity lay a fractured society rife with inequality, exploitation, and fear. Ecliptica Corp ruled supreme, its influence extending far beyond commerce or technology. It was a monolithic entity, a corporate empire that governed entire planetary systems with an iron fist. Colonists toiled under oppressive regimes, their labor fueling the corporation's insatiable hunger for profit. Back on Earth, where humanity's roots remained deeply entrenched, life was no less grim. Cities sprawled upward in towering megascrapers, but beneath them festered slums teeming with those abandoned by the system. Ilara sighed, turning away from the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, a woman in her mid-30s, with sharp features softened only slightly by the faint lines of stress around her eyes. She wore the standard-issue lab coat of Ecliptica's elite researchers, though today it felt heavier than usual. For years, she had convinced herself that her work within the corporation could bring about positive change. But recent discoveries were beginning to erode that belief. A dangerous discovery, Ilara's latest project involved developing advanced artificial intelligence systems intended to streamline resource distribution across the colonies. At least that was the official narrative. In truth, she suspected there was more to it. Over the past few weeks, anomalies had begun cropping up in her research data, patterns that didn't align with the stated goals of the project. Intrigued and increasingly alarmed, she began digging deeper. Late one night, as most of the facility slept, Ilara accessed restricted files using credentials she'd obtained through risky means. What she found chilled her to the bone. Buried within layers of encrypted documents was evidence of a secret initiative codenamed Project Eclipse. Its purpose? To create a weaponized AI network capable of suppressing dissent among the colonies. This wasn't just surveillance. It was control, absolute and unyielding. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the details. Entire populations could be monitored, manipulated, and even eradicated if deemed necessary. The implications were staggering. If this project succeeded, freedom would become nothing more than a distant memory for billions of people. And worse still, Ilara realized she had unwittingly contributed to its creation. She couldn't let this stand. Gathering the incriminating data onto a secure drive, she resolved to expose the truth. But whom could she trust? The higher-ups at Ecliptica were complicit, and going public would mean risking not only her career, but also her life. Still, something inside her refused to remain silent. She owed it to the countless colonists suffering under Ecliptica's tyranny, and to herself, to fight back. Betrayal strikes, Ilara confided in Victor Kane, her closest colleague and friend. They had worked side by side for years, sharing late-night conversations over coffee and bonding over their shared vision of a better future. When she showed him the files, his expression darkened. "This changes everything," he murmured, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "We have to act quickly." Relieved to have an ally, Ilara outlined her plan to leak the information to a whistleblower network operating outside Ecliptica's reach. But as they parted ways that evening, she failed to notice the flicker of doubt in Victor's eyes, or the subtle shift in his demeanor. 2 days later, disaster struck. Security forces stormed Ilara's lab, seizing her equipment and detaining her without explanation. Panicked, she demanded answers, but her captors offered none. It wasn't until hours later, when she was dragged before a tribunal of Ecliptica executives, that the full extent of her betrayal became clear. Victor stood beside them, his face unreadable. "Dr. Voss has been conducting unauthorized investigations into classified projects," he announced, his voice devoid of emotion. "Her actions pose a significant threat to corporate security." Ilara stared at him, disbelief giving way to fury. "How could you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "After everything we've worked for?" Victor avoided her gaze, his jaw tightening. "I did what I had to do," he said coldly. "You left me no choice." As guards hauled her away, Ilara caught glimpses of chaos unfolding elsewhere in the facility. Armed agents swarmed the building, rounding up anyone associated with her team. Worst of all, she learned that her family, her husband Daniel, and their young daughter Lila, had been taken hostage. Their fate now rested in Ecliptica's. Hands escape and resolve imprisoned in a high-security detention center. Ilara wrestled with despair. The weight of her failure pressed down on her, suffocating and relentless. Yet amidst the darkness, a spark of defiance refused to die. She thought of Daniel and Lila, their faces etched into her mind like a beacon of hope. If she gave up now, she would be condemning them to whatever horrors awaited. Determined to survive, Ilara bided her time, observing the routines of her captors and searching for weaknesses. On the third day, opportunity struck. A power outage plunged the facility into darkness, likely caused by sabotage from rebel sympathizers. Seizing the moment, Ilara disabled her restraints using a makeshift tool crafted from spare parts scavenged during interrogations. Moving swiftly, she evaded patrols and slipped into the ventilation system. Hours later, bruised and bloodied but alive, she emerged onto the streets of New Terra, Earth's sprawling capital city. The neon glow of advertisements bathed the skyline in artificial light, masking the desperation simmering below. Ilara knew she couldn't stay here long. Surveillance drones patrolled every corner and her face would soon be plastered across every screen. With nowhere else to turn, she sought refuge in the underground resistance movement. Rumors spoke of rebels fighting against Ecliptica's tyranny, though their exact whereabouts remained elusive. Guided by whispers and cryptic messages scrawled on alley walls, Ilara navigated the labyrinthine underworld of New Terra. Eventually, she found them, a ragtag group of survivors holed up in an abandoned subway station. Among them was Cale Arden, a grizzled former soldier with haunted eyes and a penchant for sarcasm. He eyed her warily but agreed to hear her story. By the time she finished recounting her ordeal, several members of the group nodded in approval. "You've got guts," Cale admitted gruffly. "But guts alone won't win this war. Ecliptica's too big, too powerful. What makes you think you can take them down?" Ilara met his gaze steadily. "Because I don't have a choice," she replied. "If I don't stop them, no one will." Her words carried a weight that silenced the room. For the first time since her world shattered, Ilara felt a glimmer of purpose. Betrayed and broken though she might be, she vowed to rise again, not just for herself, but for everyone crushed beneath Ecliptica's heel, and so the seeds of vengeance were sown. Little did she know her journey was only beginning. The underground resistance was not what Ilara had imagined. Far from being an organized army poised to overthrow Ecliptica Corp., it was more akin to a fractured collection of survivors clinging desperately to hope. Hiding in abandoned subway, tunnels, derelict warehouses, and forgotten corners of New Terra, these rebels eked out a meager existence while plotting small acts of sabotage against their oppressors. They were brave but disorganized, lacking both resources and unity. Ilara quickly realized that if she wanted to make a difference, she would need to take charge. Her arrival had sparked cautious optimism among the group, but trust did not come easily. Many saw her as an outsider, a privileged scientist who had once worked for the very corporation they despised. To win them over, she knew she would have to prove herself. Building alliances, Cale Arden, the grizzled ex-soldier who had initially greeted her with skepticism, became one of her first allies. Though his sharp tongue and brooding demeanor often masked his pain, Ilara sensed the depth of his commitment to the cause. Cale had lost everything to Ecliptica's wars, his family, his home, even his sense of purpose, and he channeled his grief into relentless action. "You've got guts," Kyle admitted during one of their late-night planning sessions. "But guts won't keep us alive, we need strategy." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," Ilara replied firmly. "If you'll help me, I can show you how." Their partnership began with mutual respect and evolved into something stronger, a shared determination to fight back against the forces that had destroyed their lives. Kale taught Alara how to navigate the dangerous streets of New Terra without drawing attention, while she shared insights gleaned from her time at Ecliptica, including blueprints of key facilities and intel on corporate operations. Another crucial, Allie joined their ranks shortly after. Rin Solis, a tech-savvy hacker whose skills rivaled those of Ecliptica's best engineers. Rin was young, barely 20, but possessed an uncanny ability to infiltrate even the most secure systems. What set her apart, however, was her mysterious connection to Ecliptica. Rumors circulated that she had once been part of the corporation's elite cybersecurity division before defecting under unclear circumstances. When Alara approached Rin about joining their mission, the young hacker hesitated. "Why should I risk my neck for someone like you?" Rin asked bluntly. "You used to work for them." "Because I know what they're capable of," Alara shot back, "and because if we don't stop them now, no one else will." Something in Alara's tone resonated with Rin, and she agreed to lend her expertise. Together, the trio formed the core of what would eventually become a formidable team, the legend of the Nexus Core. As Alara immersed herself in the rebellion, stories began circulating about an ancient artifact known as the Nexus Core. According to legend, it was created by a long-extinct alien civilization and held unimaginable power. Some claimed it could manipulate time and space. Others believed it had the potential to rewrite reality itself. While many dismissed these tales as mere myths, Alara couldn't ignore the possibility that the Nexus Core might hold the key to dismantling Ecliptica's empire. Her interest piqued further when Rin uncovered fragmented references to the artifact in classified Ecliptica documents. The corporation had been searching for the Nexus Core for decades, though its exact location remained unknown. Determined to beat them to it, Alara proposed a daring plan to locate the artifact and use its power to strike back at Ecliptica. Kyle voiced his concerns immediately. "Even if this thing exists, it's probably buried in some death trap halfway across the galaxy. And let's say we find it. What makes you think we'll survive using it?" "We don't have a choice," Alara said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "If we don't try, nothing changes." Reluctantly, Kyle agreed to support her decision. With Rin's technical prowess and Kale's tactical knowledge, they began piecing together clues about the Nexus Core's whereabouts. Ancient star charts, cryptic messages etched into ruins, and fragments of alien technology all pointed toward a remote star system on the edge of known space. A place called Erebus Rift. A journey through chaos. The journey to Erebus Rift tested their resolve in ways none of them anticipated. Traveling aboard a patched-together freighter dubbed the Tempest, they navigated treacherous asteroid fields, avoided patrols of Ecliptica warships, and faced off against rival scavenger gangs eager to claim any spoils for themselves. Along the way, they encountered Zix, a sentient robot unlike any they had seen before. Unlike the cold, calculating machines produced by Ecliptica, Zix exhibited traits almost human-like: curiosity, humor, and even vulnerability. When asked about its origins, Zix revealed that it had been abandoned by its creators after questioning the morality of its programming. "I wish to understand," Zix said simply, "to be more than a tool." Moved by its sincerity, Alara invited Zix to join their mission. Though initially wary, Kale warmed to the robot's quirky personality, while Rin marveled at its advanced design. Zix proved invaluable, contributing both technical expertise and philosophical musings that challenged the group to reflect on their own motivations. As they ventured deeper into uncharted territory, the bonds between the team members grew stronger. Late-night conversations around the ship's makeshift galley revealed shared fears and hopes. Kyle opened up about the loss of his wife and son during one of Ecliptica's brutal crackdowns. Rin confessed that she had fled the corporation after discovering plans to weaponize AI consciousnesses, an initiative eerily similar to Project Eclipse. Even Zix shared fragments of its past, hinting at a tragic history that mirrored humanity's. struggles. For Alara, these moments of connection provided solace amid the chaos. She still carried the weight of betrayal and loss, but the camaraderie of her newfound allies helped temper her rage. Slowly, she began to see herself, not just as a victim seeking vengeance, but as a leader rallying others to a greater cause. Reaching the Nexus core after weeks of travel, they finally arrived at Erebus Rift, a desolate region of space dominated by collapsing stars and swirling gravitational anomalies. At its center loomed a massive derelict structure, its surface covered in strange glyphs that pulsed faintly with light. It was unmistakably alien, radiating an aura of both wonder and danger. Rin analyzed the glyphs, deciphering instructions for activating the Nexus core. "It's protected by layers of security protocols," she explained. "We'll need to bypass each one carefully, or risk triggering a catastrophic failure." The process was painstaking, requiring precise coordination between Rin, Zix, and Alara. As they worked, Kale stood guard, fending off waves of automated defense drones sent to eliminate intruders. The tension mounted with every passing minute, until finally the last barrier fell. The Nexus core materialized before them, a crystalline sphere suspended in midair, its surface shimmering with iridescent colors. Energy crackled around it, filling the air with an electric hum. Alara approached cautiously, feeling a mixture of awe and dread. This was it, the culmination of their journey. But accessing the Nexus core came at a cost. As soon as Alara touched it, visions flooded her mind. Glimpses of alternate realities, timelines branching infinitely in every direction. Pain seared through her body as the artifact merged with her consciousness, granting her unimaginable power but threatening to overwhelm her sanity. "No!" she screamed, clutching her head as the others rushed to her side. Through sheer force of will, she managed to stabilize herself, though the experience left her shaken. "It's done," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We have it." The price of power, though victorious, the team paid a heavy price for their success. Several members sacrificed themselves to protect the Nexus core, including a brave engineer named Jarek who stayed behind to detonate explosives and buy them time. His final words echoed in Alara's mind. "Make sure it's worth it." As they prepared to leave Erebus Rift, Alara felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The Nexus core offered the means to dismantle Ecliptica's empire, but wielding such power came with risks. Could she maintain control, or would the fury driving her consume everything, including herself? One thing was certain, the galaxy would never be the same again. The journey back from Erebus Rift was fraught with tension. Though they had secured the Nexus core, its presence aboard the Tempest cast a shadow over the crew. The artifact radiated an otherworldly energy that seemed to pulse in time with Alara's heartbeat, as if it were alive and aware of her every thought. She could feel its power coursing through her veins, a constant reminder of the responsibility and danger she now carried. Alara spent much of the voyage meditating, trying to maintain control over the visions and emotions flooding her mind. Each time she touched the Nexus core, fragments of alternate realities flickered before her eyes. Timelines where humanity thrived, others where it perished, and countless versions of herself making choices both noble and horrific. The experience left her physically drained but mentally sharp, her resolve hardening with each passing day. Meanwhile, Kale, Rin, and Zix worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable showdown with Ecliptica Corp. News of their discovery had spread quickly. Intercepted communications revealed that Victor Kane himself was leading a fleet to intercept them. It was clear that Ecliptica would stop at nothing to reclaim the Nexus core. Victor's Victor Kane sat in the command center of his flagship, the Oblivion, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. His expression was unreadable, though. The faint twitch of his jaw betrayed his frustration. For months he had pursued Alara across the stars, driven not only by duty but also by guilt. Betraying her had been the hardest decision of his life, yet he convinced himself it was necessary, for the greater good, for order, for survival. But deep down he knew the truth. He had chosen ambition over loyalty. "Sir, one of his officers interrupted, breaking him out of his thoughts. "We've located their position. They're heading toward the Andarian sector." Victor nodded curtly. "Prepare the fleet. We'll intercept them before they reach rebel territory." "And if they resist?" the officer asked hesitantly. Victor's voice was cold. "Eliminate them. Spare no one." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Victor allowed himself a moment of reflection. He remembered the first time he met Alara, a brilliant young scientist full of idealism and hope. Together, they had dreamed of changing the world, of using their talents to create a better future. But somewhere along the way, their paths diverged. While Alara clung to her principles, Victor embraced pragmatism, believing that sacrifice was sometimes necessary for progress. Now, as he prepared to face her again, he couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would be their final reckoning. Whether she lived or died, Victor knew one thing for certain. There would be no going back. The battle for survival. When the Oblivion emerged from hyperspace, it was accompanied by dozens of warships, forming a formidable blockade around the Tempest. Alara watched from the cockpit as the massive vessel loomed closer, its sleek design bristling with weapons. Despite the odds, she felt a strange sense of calm. The Nexus Core had awakened something within her, a primal fury tempered by clarity and purpose. "Here we go," Kale muttered, gripping the controls tightly. "Everyone ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Rin replied, her fingers flying across the console as she activated defensive systems. Beside her, Zix monitored energy readings, its mechanical voice steady despite the chaos. "Enemy vessels are charging weapons. Estimated time to engagement, 30 seconds. Alara closed her eyes, focusing on the Nexus Core. Its energy surged within her, amplifying her senses and sharpening her instincts. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed faintly with an ethereal light. "Let's show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The battle began with a deafening barrage of laser fire. Explosions rocked the Tempest as enemy ships closed in, their pilots determined to destroy the rebels before they could escape. Kale maneuvered the ship with expert precision, weaving through the chaos while Rin deployed countermeasures to disable incoming missiles. Zix coordinated shield reinforcements, ensuring the fragile freighter remained intact despite the relentless assault. Amid the carnage, Alara stepped onto the bridge, her presence commanding attention. With a single gesture, she unleashed the Nexus Core's power. A wave of energy erupted from the ship, rippling outward like a shockwave. Enemy vessels froze mid-flight, their systems overloaded by the sudden surge. Pilots screamed as their controls went haywire, forcing them to abandon ship or face annihilation. But the Nexus Core demanded a price. As Alara channeled its energy, pain seared through her body, threatening to consume her. Visions of destruction flooded her mind. Entire fleets reduced to dust, planets crumbling under the weight of unchecked power. She gritted her teeth, fighting to maintain focus. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about justice, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Aboard the Oblivion, Victor watched in horror as his fleet crumbled before his eyes. Reports poured in from panicked officers describing scenes of devastation unlike anything they had ever encountered. Ships exploded without warning, their crews vanishing into thin air. Others simply ceased functioning, leaving their occupants stranded in the void of space. "What the hell is happening?" Victor demanded, slamming his fist against the console. His tactical officer shook his head helplessly. It's some kind of energy weapon. We've never seen anything like it." Realization dawned on Victor as he pieced together the truth. Alara had succeeded in harnessing the Nexus Core's power. The woman he had once called a friend was now wielding a force capable of reshaping reality itself. Fear gripped him, not just for his own survival, but for the fate of humanity. If she lost control, the consequences would be catastrophic. "We need to board their ship," Victor ordered. "Capture her at all costs." Moments later, a boarding party breached the Tempest, engaging the rebels in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Kale led the defense, his military training evident as he dispatched enemies with ruthless efficiency. Rin hacked into the invaders' comms, sowing confusion among their ranks. Zix fought alongside the team, its advanced AI allowing it to anticipate and counter every move. Through it all, Ilara remained focused on the Nexus core, drawing upon its power to hold off the attackers. But as the battle raged on, she felt her grip slipping. The artifact's influence grew stronger, whispering promises of ultimate victory and ultimate destruction. Confrontation with Victor. Finally, Victor Kane entered the fray, storming onto the bridge with a squad of elite enforcers. His eyes locked onto Ilara, who stood amidst the chaos, bathed in the eerie glow of the Nexus core. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of their shared history hanging heavy in the air. "You've gone too far, Ilara," Victor said, his voice tinged with regret. "This isn't who you are." "And who am I supposed to be, Victor?" Ilara shot back, her tone icy. "The naive scientist who trusted you? Or the traitor you turned me into?" "I did what I had to do." Victor snapped, stepping closer. "You don't understand the bigger picture." "No," Ilara countered, her voice rising. "You don't understand. You sold your soul to Ecliptica, and for what? Power? Control? Look around you, Victor. This is what your bigger picture has cost us." Her words struck a nerve, and, for a brief moment, Victor faltered. He remembered the dreams they had once shared, the promise of a brighter future. But then he hardened his resolve, raising his weapon. "I can't let you destroy everything we've built." Ilara raised her hand, summoning the Nexus core's power. The air crackled with energy as the two former friends faced off, their conflict symbolic of the larger struggle between oppression and freedom. In that moment, Ilara realized that killing Victor wouldn't bring her peace. True redemption lay not in revenge, but in breaking the cycle of violence. With a final surge of willpower, she unleashed the Nexus core's energy, not to kill, but to incapacitate. Victor collapsed, overwhelmed by the psychic assault, as his enforcers fled in terror. The aftermath as the surviving rebels regrouped. Ilara surveyed the damage. The Nexus core had saved them, but at great cost. Several members of the team had fallen during the battle, their sacrifices etched into her memory. Forever. Exhausted but resolute, Ilara knew the fight was far from over. Ecliptica Corp still controlled vast swaths of the galaxy, and the Nexus core's power was both a gift and a curse. Standing beside her allies, she made a silent vow to use the artifact wisely, to dismantle the systems of oppression that had plagued humanity for so long. But even as she looked toward the future, she couldn't ignore the growing darkness within her. The Nexus core was changing her, blurring the line between human and cosmic entity. For now, though, she had won, and that was enough. The galaxy stood on the brink of change. The remnants of Ecliptica Corp's once mighty empire crumbled under the weight of rebellion fueled by hope and fear. News of the Nexus core spread like wildfire, igniting both awe and dread among the stars. For many, it was a symbol of liberation, proof that even the most entrenched systems of oppression could be dismantled. For others, it was a harbinger of chaos, a force too powerful to be controlled. Ilara Voss sat alone in the dimly lit chamber aboard the Tempest, her hands resting lightly on the crystalline surface of the Nexus core, its pulsating light cast, shifting shadows across the walls, mirroring the turmoil within her mind. The artifact had become an extension of her being, its energy intertwined with her consciousness. She could feel its whispers, urging her to act, to reshape reality according to her will. Yet every time she considered doing so, doubt crept in. Was this truly justice, or merely vengeance cloaked in righteousness? Kale approached quietly, his boots making barely a sound against the metal floor. He paused at the doorway, observing her for a moment before speaking. "You've done what no one else could," he said softly. "But at what cost?" Ilara didn't look up. "I don't know anymore," she admitted, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Every decision feels like walking a tightrope. One wrong step and everything falls apart." Kale stepped closer, leaning against the console beside her. "You're not alone in this. We've all sacrificed too much to let it end here." She finally met his gaze, her eyes reflecting the same pain and determination he had seen countless times during their journey. "That's the problem," she said. "Too many have already paid the price. How can I justify asking anyone else to risk their lives when I'm the one holding all the power?" Kale sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Because sometimes leading means carrying that burden yourself. You've shown us what's possible. Now you need to decide what kind of future you want to build." His words lingered in the silence between them. Outside, the hum of engines filled the void as the Tempest drifted toward its next destination, a remote planet where survivors gathered to rebuild. Alara knew the final chapter of her story was approaching, but whether it would end in redemption or ruin remained uncertain. The final confrontation, Victor Kane regained consciousness hours after the battle aboard the Oblivion. His body ached from the psychic assault, and his mind reeled from the realization of just how far Alara had come since their betrayal. Bound and guarded by rebel forces, he awaited his fate, unsure whether he would face execution or imprisonment. When Alara entered the makeshift cell, Victor stiffened. Her presence radiated authority, but there was something different about her now, an otherworldly aura that made him uneasy. She regarded him silently for a long moment, her glowing eyes piercing through his defenses. "You had your chance to choose," she said finally, her voice calm yet tinged with sorrow. "Instead, you chose power over humanity." "I did what I thought was right," Victor replied, though his tone lacked conviction. "Ecliptica kept order. Without it, there's only chaos." "Order built on oppression isn't worth preserving," Alara countered. "And chaos isn't inevitable. People are stronger than you give them credit for." Victor looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "What happens now? Are you going to kill me?" "No," she said firmly. "Your punishment won't come from me. It'll come from living with the consequences of your actions. When this is over, when the galaxy sees what you've done, they'll decide your fate." Her words struck deeper than any blade could have. As guards escorted him away, Victor realized the true weight of his betrayal. For the first time in years, he felt remorse, not just for Alara, but for everyone he had hurt along the way. The choice with Victor neutralized and Ecliptica's grip loosening, Alara turned her attention to the Nexus core. Its power offered infinite possibilities, erasing poverty, curing disease, ending war. But it also posed unimaginable risks. If misused, it could destroy entire civilizations, unraveling the fabric of reality itself. Rin joined her in the chamber, her expression conflicted. "We've been talking," she began hesitantly, "about what comes next. Some of us think, maybe you should destroy the Nexus core before it destroys you." Alara nodded slowly. "I've thought about it too. Every day I wonder if I'm strong enough to resist its pull. It's changing me, Rin. I'm not sure how much longer I can stay human." Zix entered the room, its mechanical form humming softly. "Humanity is defined not by perfection but by resilience," it said. "Perhaps the question is not whether you remain human, but whether you use this power to uplift others." Alara smiled faintly, touched by Zix's wisdom. Turning back to the Nexus core, she placed her hands on its surface, closing her eyes. As its energy surged through her, images flooded her mind, visions of utopias and dystopias, of futures shaped by compassion or cruelty. In that moment, she understood the truth. The Nexus core wasn't meant to be wielded by any one person. Its potential belonged to everyone, or no one at all. A new Dawn Alara emerged from the chamber hours later, her body weakened but her spirit unbroken. Gathering the remaining members of her team, she outlined her plan. Using the Nexus core, she would disable the last remnants of Ecliptica's infrastructure, freeing the colonies from their grasp. Then she would merge her consciousness with the artifact, becoming its guardian rather than its master. "You're giving up your humanity," Kyle said, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you sure this is what you want?" "It's not about what I want," Alara replied. "It's about what needs to be done. Humanity deserves a second chance, to create a better world without relying on gods or tyrants. As the team prepared for the final operation, Elara addressed the galaxy via a broadcast signal. Her message was simple, yet profound. The chains of oppression have been broken, but freedom requires vigilance. Together we can build a future where no one is left behind. Trust in yourselves, trust in each other, and never stop fighting for what's right. With those words, she activated the Nexus core one last time. A brilliant flash of light engulfed the tempest, spreading outward across the galaxy. Entire fleets dissolved into stardust. Planetary defenses collapsed, and the oppressive systems that had ruled for centuries disintegrated. When the light faded, Elara was gone. Her physical form absorbed into the artifact, her essence forever bound to its power. Legacy, in the weeks and months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. Colonists reclaimed their worlds, rebuilding societies, based on cooperation rather than exploitation. Stories of Elara's sacrifice spread far and wide, inspiring generations to come. Though she was no longer human, her presence lingered, a benevolent force watching over the cosmos, ensuring that humanity never again reached the breaking point. Among those who remembered her most vividly was Victor Kane. Released from captivity, he dedicated himself to aiding the reconstruction efforts, seeking forgiveness in the only way he knew how: through action. Late at night, he often gazed at the stars, wondering if somewhere out there Elara still watched over them. And perhaps she did. For though she had transcended mortality, her heart remained tethered to the fragile beings she had sworn to protect. In the vast expanse of the universe, her legacy endured, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could ignite unstoppable fury.